Welcome to On Health with Houston Methodist. I'm Zach Moore. I'm a photographer and editor here, and I'm also a longtime podcaster.
I'm Todd Ackerman. I'm a former medical reporter, currently an editor at Houston Methodist.
And Todd, do you strength train?
I do. I have lifted weights, in my case, for more than 40 years now. There have been times where circumstances caused me to lay off for some periods of time, like the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, I've been pretty consistently working out all that time.
That's to be commended. I've worked out on and off occasionally.
I thought we established in a previous podcast that you definitely did work out.
I do, but not as consistently as I should. I go like it kind of goes in waves, you know. I commend your consistency, Todd, because I find it hard to stick with this stuff. Because if you're doing it right, it's hard work, you know?
Yes. Yes. I once had someone just turn to me in the gym and say, "How do you get the motivation to do this? I see you here so regularly." And I kind of thought, well, I guess it's been noticed that I have no life except for going to the gym.
That's funny. That person probably comes in like 3 times a year and they're there every time.
Yeah.
Like, how do they know that you're not there 3 times a year?
That was
right?
my first thought too. How would you know that unless you're here?
Oh man. No, but strength training is an important part of your health.
Oh, absolutely. There's innumerable benefits from it.
I mean, obviously that's probably kept you going for 4 decades doing it. Right?
Well, I got to say, like most guys, when I was in my 20s, I think I was weightlifting just because, growing up, I was always thin. I don't want to say scrawny, but I always felt like I needed to develop a little better build. Mm-hmm. And there's probably still some of that you want to maintain that. But over the years, I've been struck at how the different benefits that they say weightlifting brings.
Mm. So for you then, what's been the biggest return of all this strength training over the years?
Well, that's a good question. I did a bone density test at one point, which turned out great, to the point they asked me, "Do you lift weights?" And I said, "Yeah."
That's what you want to have people ask you.
Yeah.
Like that's a good question to be asked. Do you lift, right?
Yeah. But something that it may be helping that I would have never thought of, but I keep hearing that in people I talk to or what I read is it's just great at burning fat and preventing any sort of development of abdominal fat, which I've always been good on. So
it sounds like you've kind of always been ahead of the 8 ball when it comes to the fitness part.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I've got it down to a real structure. Like, I'll lift 4 days a week and I'll do 2 days where I do my lower body and abs, and then 2 days where I do my upper body. And my upper body is divided into one day where I like push out and another day where I pull in. Mm-hmm. So I'm very structured about all this.
Listen to this, y'all. He knows what he's talking about here. So, and you alternate those days.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's always a rest day in between, on which days I'll just do some aerobic work, and then it'll switch from one day lower body the next day, upper body the next time, lower body the next time, the other upper body.
Right. So you clearly have a vested interest in strength training, and that's why we're talking about this today.
Yes, I thought it would be interesting. I thought I might learn some things, and I thought there's a lot of people out there who are starting to weightlift or are weightlifters, and like me, they're probably just winging it. And so maybe it'd be good to hear from somebody.
Absolutely. Who is that someone we heard from?
Well, we talked to Dwight Adsit, who's a athletic trainer at Houston Methodist. We're here to talk about strength training, specifically weightlifting. So I'm eager to get your thoughts on this. So I really lived through the era when all the talk was about aerobics, running. But more and more over the years, it seems I hear about all the benefits of strength training. Has strength training kind of replaced aerobic training as the more important way to get your exercise and activity?
Well, I think it's become a little bit more prevalent than it has been in the past. We're finding that a lot of our population wasn't getting all the benefit that they could from it. And we have an obese society, and you're not building the muscle mass that with aerobic training that you do with strength training. And muscle mass helps increase your metabolism, which keeps the obesity and your weight down to help live a healthier lifestyle.
They wouldn't get the benefits from aerobics.
They were getting the cardiovascular benefit from it, but they're not getting the metabolic benefit needed to help burn, the calories that they consume during the day.
So talk about all the benefits. You mentioned metabolism, fat burning.
Yeah, which helps with the fat burning. Aerobics does that as well, but you got to be at a higher level for a longer period of time when you're with aerobics. Or with strength training, building that muscle over time helps just naturally burn more calories just by breathing and being alive. So you're helping to lose weight with the strength training.
The guidelines all call like for 4 days of aerobic and 2 days of weight training. Is that enough?
I think that's probably enough, if not too much. I would probably look at either going 2 and 2, depending on where you're at on the cycle, as working out. If you're a beginner, then, look at maybe, the guidelines are getting 4 to 5 days of exercise, but maybe looking at 3 days of weight training and 2 days of some sort of cardiovascular work, whether that's swimming, biking, walking, jogging, whatever your interests are.
So I've heard muscle touted as sort of the fountain of youth, that people should be focused on building it more than going on diets to lose weight. Do you agree with that?
I do. I mean, diets are only good for the period of time that you're on them, and sometimes your body acclimates to that, and so it may not have the same benefits in the end, or as you're into it, as it did in the beginning. Where strength training and exercise, I mean, you'll see the benefits as long as you're, like anything else, as long as you're continuous with it, consistent with it, you're going to see the benefits for a much longer period of time. I know it's going to be, I've heard it, as you said, as the fountain of youth, but it may not be able to guarantee that you're going to live any longer, but you're going to, the life you live is going to be much more productive and healthy.
And lifting weights combined with the right eating is a good way to lose weight?
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
We're going to focus here on weightlifting, but define strength training generally and talk about the different types, just because I want to get out there that there are alternatives, even though we're not going to go in that direction.
Yeah, there are. I mean, you can start with the simple. Strength training is just doing body weight activities, whether that's push-ups, sit-ups, planks, body weight squats. Then you can get into the resistance training, which doesn't necessarily mean weights. It can be bands. It can be balance types activities that you do different types of activities with while you're balancing. And it can go from a very stable platform to a very unstable platform as you become stronger through that. And then obviously then there's the barbell weight training, lifting weights, whether that's through a machine or free weights. And then you also get into dumbbells and kettlebells and there's all kinds of different activities that you can be involved in that help build strength.
But what's the definition of strength training? Lifting
with a resistance.
How effective is weightlifting at preventing the muscle loss and joint tissue wasting that comes with age? Is it more about kind of slowing that process down, or can you actually keep building muscle as you get to a not so young age?
You can continue to build muscle as long as you're involved in that activity. It will slow the process down. I mean, you will gain benefits throughout your entire life through strength training. Helps increase mobility within the joint. So you have more movement through the joint as you age, as long as you're working through the full range of motion when you are weightlifting.
So what is the rate at which we lose muscle? What age does it start occurring? How many percent by decade? Or
I don't know exactly the percent by decade, but I mean, you can start by inactivity. It can start as early as your teenage years, and then it gets worse as time goes on. So, I mean, it's something that will happen, early on if you're not doing some sort of resistance training or doing some sort of exercise.
Okay. But if you're not doing it, isn't it something like 1 or 2% a year you lose at starting at 35 or
35
something?
Is kind of that magical age where things will change as time goes on.
So what advice do you give people who are sort of intimidated by the prospects of weightlifting? That's probably not an uncommon thing, right?
No, it's very common. And the people I've worked with in the past, I always said that the most difficult thing is to get in the car and drive to wherever it is you're going to do, or get to the room that you exercise in. It can be very intimidating, but people need to understand that you're not going to be the person you see on TV that's Mr. Olympia. It's starting slow, like I said, doing body weight activities and just moving, just begin with. And then as time goes on, then you can increase your activity and increase the weights that you're using or the resistance that you're used to gain your benefit.
I realize that people would probably be best off hiring a trainer, but most of us aren't doing that. So how effective or dangerous can it be just doing it yourself? And are there apps or videos or anything you recommend particularly for the beginner?
Well, I find, myself included in this, sometimes, if you're a little bit older, your mind thinks you can do what you did, your body can do when you were 20 years old. And that's not necessarily the case. I think the big thing is researching either through YouTube. You can go on YouTube and look for beginning strength training programs, or go to a local gym and meet with a personal trainer maybe one time. It's not something you have to do all the time, but just to try and get, an idea of how to use the weights, what to do, what activities will be most beneficial for you as you begin your program and progress up from there. It can be, where you meet with somebody. I do recommend you meet with somebody on a regular basis, but it can be as frequent as 3 times a week or as infrequent as one time a month, one time every other month, just to chart your progress and then see what would be the next course of action that you could take.
And I take it to make sure your form is good?
Yeah, to work on form. And I mean, that's the big thing, is that another big thing to prevent injuries is making sure that it's not about necessarily how much weight you're lifting, but the weight you are lifting is done properly and your form is correct. Whether it's with weights or resistance bands or gymnastic balls or anything of those natures.
So do you have any specific tips for the beginner, the foremost things that someone should know before they start working out?
What I think is start slow, progress no more than 10% per week, meaning if you're lifting 10 pounds, then 1 week, then the next week you're lifting 11 pounds. You're not going to go from 10 pounds to 20 pounds to 30 pounds each time you do something. It's starting lightweight, starting slow, or if you're doing push-ups, starting with 5, if that's what you can do, or maybe you can only do it for 10 seconds and then progressing up. But keep it in mind, you're only progressing 10% per week.
I can remember about 30 years ago when I was going to the gym, they had computerized machines. So you could just set them like for, 3 pounds more the second, the next week you wanted to go up. They seem to have done away with those. So now you have to, the 5 or 10 pounds is like the least you can up your.
Yeah. And everybody's trying to, it's because of technology, we're getting more and more interactive and those kinds of things. But we found that if you increase more than that over a period of time, it can cause problems with the body part that you're working with, overuse problems.
But what are the key things to maximize your workouts without injuring yourself?
Making sure that you're using proper form, proper technique, increasing your resistance at the appropriate level, being consistent with it as well. You can't go 1 day a week this week and then try and go 5 days the next week. You want to be consistent as you go through.
What are the most common mistakes people make?
To your point earlier, it's form. They try and do too much too soon, and then they're either damaging the joint or the tissue that they're working, or they're overusing it, and then they can't continue with the program because they've hurt themselves, and then they get discouraged and then stop doing what they're doing.
A couple of what's better questions. Less reps of heavy weights or more reps of lighter weights?
Well, especially for the beginner stage, it's going to be higher numbers and lower weights. If you can do it. I mean, and I say higher instead of, when you're lifting for muscle mass to gain mass, it's going to be fewer reps and higher weight. We're going to maybe start at either no weights, just body weight, doing more repetitions with proper form, and then increasing that up. If you're doing something, I like to go up to maybe 30 to 40 repetitions at the weight you're working at. And then when you've got that down and you've got good form and feels like easy, then I'm going to increase my weight but decrease my repetitions down to, maybe somewhere around 15 to 20 repetitions.
More experienced weightlifters tend to work with heavier weights, less reps?
Yes. They're doing 5 sets of 3 repetitions, but there's a different formula for them to use. It's usually body weight, 1 rep or 3 rep max, and they're hitting 95% of their 1 rep max to build that muscle mass.
And men more than women doing heavy weights, women doing like lots of...
I think traditionally it's been men doing more heavy weights, but women have really got into the scene, and it's taken a long time for them to get where they're at. So it's not something you're just going to jump into right away.
And how about women being concerned about weightlifting causing them to kind of bulk up?
Unless you're getting into there's a slight population that will get into that. And then most of the time, they're really working to try and gain that bulk. If you're going out doing lighter weights, you're going to tone what you've got, but you're not going to build massive muscles and look disproportionate.
Free weights or machines?
I like to start with machines because it helps with the balance and helps with the technique. But over time, there's a benefit to what I call proprioception, or your body being able to know where it's working in space and time. And free weights will give you a better benefit once you've got the technique down and the strength to control it. I think the best, the top of the line on that is working with barbells, where it's individually operated, if you will, on each side, so you get the maximum benefit off of that. But that's a very, very high level skill.
Yeah, I've been working out for a long time, and I still prefer the machines just because free weights can seem dangerous to me.
They can be very dangerous and hard to control. That's why the machines tend to be a little bit, you can gain some benefit from them, but they're much safer.
How about amount of time between sets?
If you're working, say if you're working 1 minute, I like to have a 2-minute rest in between. It's not a 1-to-1 rest. I think your body needs recovery. I think that's a big misconception, is that you just need to hammer it all the way through, and your body needs time to recover. So recover between sets, so you're doing it correctly. You can get the number of repetitions you want and maintain your form and not injure yourself.
2 minutes sounds good. I always kind of feel guilty when I take too much, figure I'm taking too much time.
No, I think it's a 1 period of time for the work and 2 periods of time for the rest.
But that circuit training, they have you go real quick, don't they?
They do. But I think over time, you lose the best benefit you can, because you get tired, and then all of a sudden your technique goes out the window, and you're not gaining the most benefit.
So you're not a big fan of that trend?
I'm not a big fan of circuit training.
Okay. Is there a best time of day to lift?
Statistically, the best time to work out is in the morning. That's when you've gained the most rest and your body's at peak performance. But there's also real life that gets involved in this. And, if you're trying to, get ready for work and get the kids off to school, sometimes it's difficult to do that before you have to get to work. So whatever fits your schedule the best, as long as you're getting the activity done, that's going to be the most important thing. But morning is, scientifically better for you to work out in.
This question is particularly as you age, and you touched on this, but I asked again because this is something I'm kind of guilty of, and really grapple with, is how much do you continue to push yourself as you age? It's to me, it's like that's what weightlifting is. You're always looking to reach a level at which it's time to go to the next level. But when do you know you've kind of maxed out on that?
I think it's, as you progress up through your program and become more knowledgeable of how your body's responding to things and what you're asking for it to do, you'll kind of know either you've pushed it too much or you haven't pushed it enough. If you're not able to recover, say you're lifting on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and you're not able to recover from Monday's workout on Wednesday to be able to do what you did on Monday, then you've probably pushed it a little bit too far. And so it's kind of like, okay, let's either cut down on the weight or the repetitions that we did, so then I'm able to recover and do at least what I did the time before. Unfortunately,
I often push to an amount that the only way my body lets me know is when I get injured.
Right.
Because when I'm doing it initially, it seems like I can do it okay, but it's that repetitive stress that finally gets you.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't know ahead of time what's going to happen after the fact. And so you've got to listen to your body. Soreness is to be expected, and if you're sore in the muscles, I mean, I think that's part of the natural process of getting in shape. But as time goes on, if you're starting to have pain in the joints and you're not able to work, move your joint through the full range of motion, then you've probably pushed yourself too hard and you're setting yourself up for a trip to the doctor because you've injured yourself.
So you mentioned soreness. It lasts longer, but it seems like as I've aged, I've noticed a phenomenon of sort of delayed onset soreness.
Yeah, and it's not something you're going to feel right when you're done working out or during your workout. Some people, you release endorphins when you exercise, and that's the feel good runner's high, if you will. But it's the day after that you expect to be sore, but I mean, if you're limping or not able to lift a cup of coffee, you've overdone it the day before. So we need to either, like I said, cut back on the amount of weight that you've done, the sets, or you've done too many exercises and may need to cut out something at that point in time until your body gets in better shape to be able to handle that, and then slowly introduce it back into it. Don't just pick up and think, oh, I can do what I did before I felt this pain or soreness.
How important is resistance when returning the weight to the sitting position? I often have to remind myself of that because I'm so focused on, pushing it out.
There's two movements that, and for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So when you're lifting a weight, for example, say the bench press, I mean, you're using your chest and your biceps to shorten up. The muscles are shortened up. That's called the concentric movement. But when you're lowering it back down, there's a benefit called eccentric movement. And that's where you're working through the muscles as they're lengthening. And so that should be just as slow or at the same speed that you push the weight up. It should be that same speed coming down.
You're breathing out when you're really exerting out and then breathing in on the return, right?
Right. You are.
Dwight mentioned the metabolic benefits of weightlifting, its fat and calorie burning appeal. Others emphasize strengthened bones, reduced risk of osteoporosis, and improved balance and posture, all of which reduce the risk of falls and injuries that can rob people of their independence when they get older. What's less talked about is weightlifting's effect on mental health. The greatest effect involves anxiety and depression. A 2024 systematic review of more than 200 articles on weightlifting's effects found improvements in anxiety and depression in both the general population and those with a confirmed diagnosis of either condition. The effect was strongest on those with the diagnosis. Specifically, lifting weights lifts moods, according to another review of studies about strength training and mental health. The review found that resistance exercise often substantially reduces people's gloom, no matter how melancholy they feel at first, or how often, or seldom, they actually get to the gym and lift. A third analysis of studies found that people who engage in resistance training tend to have better brain health, a benefit most pronounced in the elderly. People with cognitive decline had better cognition after starting resistance training. The analysis also found weightlifting brought improved self-esteem and better quality sleep. So the next time you think about skipping your weightlifting session because your body's dragging, resist. Your brain will thank you.
After the break, we'll be back with Dwight, who will talk about protein diet and how it ties into your workout.
From annual checkups to managing chronic conditions, your healthcare should be personalized to you. At Houston Methodist, our primary care doctors provide customized care for you and your family, with more than 40 convenient locations across Greater Houston. We offer a variety of ways to get care, from in-person and virtual appointments to same-day visits when you're sick. Choose your doctor and schedule online at houstonmethodist.org/stayhealthy. Houston Methodist, leading medicine.
Can you talk some about the importance of diet in strength training, how much protein you need?
experts that I've read, they're suggesting that you have about 40 grams of protein first thing in the morning, and then first thing and last meal in the evening. Protein is a building block for our muscles. And if you do not have it there, then the muscles are not going to work the way that you want them to and was most efficiently. So diet plays a big role in this. We as Americans probably have way too much carbohydrates in our diet, too much sugar, too much processed food. So if you can get back to lean meats, fruits and vegetables, that's going to help provide a better building block for building the muscles and have that available for the body to use as an energy source.
But the key is getting an abundant amount in the morning and then
in the evening,
night.
Yes, because
that third meal, that lunch meal, it's not, you don't have to worry.
I'm not saying it's not important, but I think, you're coming off of, in breakfast, you're coming off of, not having anything to eat from anywhere from 8 to 10, 12 hours maybe. And you've got to have fuel in the body to be able to do the work that you want it to do. And then you've worked all day, and as you sleep, you want to have that protein available to help build the muscles while you're sleeping. The metabolism occurs just with us breathing. It's not just our exercising. So we need to have the energy sources available all day long.
And those protein mixes and drinks and creatine, things like that are good?
Protein mixes are okay. I think it's better to get it through natural sources. If you need to supplement, it's okay, but don't use it as a sole source of protein. I'm not a big fan of creatine because most people overuse it, and the benefits are not as great as sometimes we're led to believe. Our body produces the majority of creatine that we need.
What's the latest thinking on the importance of stretching before, after?
Stretching is very, very important. I mean, we live in Houston, but if you're living it's a cold day out there, you don't jump in your car and just speed down the freeway going 100 miles an hour without it warming up a little bit. And the body's the same way. We need to get the blood flowing, get our body used to movements that we're going to do before we actually start really working them heavy. So it's important that we get the blood flowing. I call it active exercise, active warm up. So it's not just bending over and touching your toes. It's jogging a little bit.
5 or 10 minutes?
I'd say, a couple laps, whatever that, a couple laps around the track. If that what it looks like, 5 to 10 minutes would be perfect. And then doing some joint specific movements that you're going to be working on that day. So if you're working on the legs, you're going to do some high knees, maybe do a little skipping if you can do that. You're going to do some hip movements. I call it open the gate and close the gate. So you're really working those hips to get blood flowing to that area and get those proprioceptors in that joint ready for the movement that's going to be occurring there. And then when exercise is over, it's important maybe that you jog down a little bit, maybe for 2 to 3 minutes. And then at that time, you can do some of your static stretching, lengthen out the muscles, let them calm down from the higher level activity you're doing. Let them slowly calm down. Don't just quit what you're doing and go sit in a chair or get in the car and drive home. You do need to stretch out the body parts that you've worked on.
And recovery moves, not just right after, but like in the day after you've worked out, anything you suggest?
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's, I'm suggesting that maybe you go out and do either some biking or jogging or walking, whatever's best for you. But again, you're still going to use those same warm-up techniques. So if you're going to go for a bike ride, you go for maybe 10 minutes just at a gradual pace, and you increase it up as time goes on to get your body ready for those activities. But it will help loosen up and have better blood flow through the joints and through the muscles, so they can recover from the hard workout that you had the day before.
And get enough sleep.
And sleep is probably right up there as one of the most important things. I mean, we, again, as Americans, and I'm included in this one too, we don't get enough rest.
But that's especially important when weightlifting for the muscle to rebuild.
Yeah, exactly. You should be getting minimum of 8 hours of sleep per night. I know it's difficult to do, but for the most benefit, you need to get that at least 8 hours of sleep per evening.
In summary, anything you want to add? If the listener could only take so much from this podcast, what would you hope it would be?
You got to start slow, get educated on what you want to do, either meet with a professional to map out a kind of a plan of where you're at and where you want to be. be consistent with what you're doing. This is going to take some time. You know, if you're looking to lose weight, that the weight didn't come on overnight, it's not going to come off overnight. It's going to take some time, and be consistent with your exercise as you're going through this phase of your life.
All right, very good. I appreciate you taking time to talk with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
So Todd, in my never-ending workout journey, you know, I've done some circuit training, right? I've done those like boot camps. You get up, you do the 1 minute thing, you go around and around, and you really get exhausted, right? And it was interesting that Dwight mentioned that circuit training is not the best.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that. I thought there were a lot of trainers that were big on those. I've never really done them.
Well, I've done them because you guys talk about this too, like personal trainer versus doing it on your own. Like I do like a little bit of guidance, right? Because I'm always worried about, am I going to push myself too hard? Am I going to hurt myself, sort of thing, right? So I feel like, there's some sense of structure or someone overseeing everything around. Like I feel a little safer, right? I feel like, I'm not going to like kill myself doing this, right? So that's why I kind of gravitate towards the circuit training or personal trainer or things like that.
I'm sorry, but you don't get that with the circuit training, do you?
Well, if there's an instructor or something, you know what I'm saying? Like the boot camps, all right?
Oh, I see.
So you've never done circuit training?
I've gone over to it and started a couple of machines and never really went through the whole thing.
Because I was like you, I was surprised to hear him say that because I thought it was beneficial.
His idea seemed to be that you needed more rest between exercise.
Yeah, that's another interesting thing he said was I too, like you, I'm like, am I resting too long in between sets? And he's like, no, a minute or two is fine. I'm like, well, I feel a lot better. Because I need that time to recover, sometimes. And I feel a little guilty. It's like, has it been a couple of minutes? Am I losing my gains doing this sort of thing?
Right.
But apparently not.
Yeah, I don't think you're losing your gains, but it just seems like to me it would be a better workout if you're not wasting a lot of time there.
Yeah.
I take his point that you should be taking twice as much time resting as you were exerting on your set.
Mm-hmm. It's a good formula for everyone to remember.
Right.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of him saying that when we were talking about a lot of people being intimidated by it, that, the hardest part is just getting in your car and driving there.
Yeah.
Because when I'm there, I'm working out pretty hard. And I would say 1 of 4 times I go to work out, I am sort of like dreading it. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying I'm kind of dragging today. I need to, push myself, but I am not looking forward to it.
Do you ever regret it afterward, though? Because in my experience, I've never regretted it. Yeah. Once you're there and you do it, you feel like, okay, I'm glad I made it out.
Right.
On the converse side, if you don't go, like I always like, oh man, I really should have gone today.
Right. But there are days where I'm working out and I'm just dragging the whole time.
Yeah.
But they say that's better
than nothing.
Right. So.
Also, the protein talk you guys had, talking about 40 grams in the morning, 40 grams at night. That kind of math is helpful to me because another thing I worry about, because I'm always trying to like balance like exercise versus diet, intake, that sort of thing. And it's like, well, if you work out really hard, you can go eat whatever you want, right? Sometimes I've been told that. I'm like, great, right? But then I'm like, no, if I'm going to try to be healthy, but then if the ways I try to eat healthy aren't necessarily compatible with like pushing harder workouts. So I want to make sure I'm getting my proper amount of protein. So that is a good number to strive for and to remember, right? The 40 grams.
Do you think you hit 40 at those meals?
Maybe.
I really had to work on breakfast to get mine up.
What was your secret to getting 40 grams of protein?
Well, I don't get 40 grams of protein. Well, I get probably low 30s.
Okay.
But I just had to incorporate some new stuff.
Like what?
Well, as you may remember, Zach, I like almond milk.
Yes, almond milk.
But that doesn't have much protein in it. But I get almond milk yogurt, which is fortified with a lot of protein.
Okay.
And then I put granola in it, which is high on protein. So that has boosted me a lot, besides like an energy bar and a hard-boiled egg I'll have.
Yeah. But
to get to 40, I would think I would need something like, bacon or something.
Right. No, I've experienced it where I don't have enough, right? Like in the morning, because as he says, morning is the best time to work out. And I agree. Like just mentally, physically, like that's when I prefer to exercise more so than the end of the day. So there had been mornings where I'm like, I don't eating a yogurt or something is essential. Because if I don't, I will run out of gas,
So most of my life, my breakfast was like an energy bar and a piece of fruit.
Uh-huh.
I've tried to work out in the morning once or twice, and it just doesn't happen for me.
So you're an evening worker out.
Yes. But remember, I'm a night owl. So I find that I have just come more alive and feel more energetic in the evening than I do in the morning.
Yeah. I guess it's a mental thing too, right? Because if you get up and you get it done, then I feel like I accomplished something, right?
Right.
As opposed to dreading it all day. Here it is at 6 o'clock. Got to go to the gym, right?
Doing it in the morning would appeal to me just because then you seem to like those endorphins are really flowing and you feel great during the day.
Mhm.
I work out at night and I get home and I'm sort of like still pumped
Fired up. Gonna go just run around the neighborhood and burn off some energy there, right?
Yeah.
So what other takeaways did you have from talking to Dwight?
You know, there's part of me that's always thought it would be a good idea to have a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
I never have. Like I say, I just wing it out there. I can't ever see really hiring someone on a regular basis. One of my best friends completely redid his garage to make it a gym and brings in a trainer 3 times a week.
He redid his garage to bring a trainer into it. Wow.
Well,
okay.
Yes. So he's a 1%er. I don't have the kind of finances to do that. But it would be nice, I think, to have a trainer just to check my form and introduce me to some new exercises. Perhaps I've been doing the same exercises forever. You know, maybe once a month or once every 2 months. I think that'd be good.
That was more important for me, like when I was really kind of getting started, because it was all just it's intimidating. Or if you go to a gym for the first time, like, what is this? What is that? How much can I do here? To have somebody kind of walk you through it is very helpful. But I do think once you kind of have a game plan, right? Or a set of goals from somebody that you can easily do those things yourself. At this point for me, having somebody is more about accountability. Like, are you actually going to go work out? Are you going to follow through?
Yeah. My friend who's built his garage up and hires someone says one of the big benefits of it is it motivates him. It forces him to be motivated.
It's like somebody's here knocking on your door at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Time to get up.
But
and work
I'm
out.
pretty self-motivated. So that's not as big a factor for me. What did you think of the idea of weightlifting as a fountain of youth?
I don't know. I guess I'll weightlift more. I mean, that's. I mean, I had never heard that before. Is that a common understanding? Or?
Yeah, I heard a podcast with someone. Someone gave not a podcast. Someone gave a TED talk in which they talked about how we don't have a obesity problem. We have a lack of muscle problem, and how that predicted bad health outcomes. And so strength training is the antidote to that.
Okay.
So think about that.
I will. I'm going to keep on strength training then. So. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of On Health with Houston Methodist. We drop episodes Tuesday mornings, so be sure to share, like, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, stay tuned and stay healthy.